T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome to the first edition of the Greatness Movement podcast. My name is Kenny Weiss. I'm your host. I'm a life coach, speaker, author, and founder of the Greatness Movement based here in Phoenix. The goal here each week is to create a movement of people who are passionate about self-awareness and wanting real answers. They want more than the superficial buzzwords that are so prevalent in this industry. They want to go deeper. They want to live in their greatness. Hey, Laura and Travis, thanks for tuning in. For those of you just showing up, you kind of might notice a little difference to the background. I'm going to get into, as more people sign on to the show, I'm going to give people a couple minutes to tune in, and I'll explain why the backdrop is so different. I did that video this morning saying there were some big changes coming and a big announcement, and you can see one of the things is the backdrop behind me. Remember, please, right now, share this. If you're on Facebook, please share this with your friends. Invite them to the show. The whole point of this movement and this show is to get people information to help them grow, get out of pain, and walk in their greatness. So please, I really encourage you to share the show, invite your friends to tune in so we can reach and help as many people as possible. If you're unable to catch the show live here Sunday nights at 7 on Facebook, you can always tune in on Spreaker, iTunes, or iHeartRadio. Just search for the Greatness Movement podcast. You can catch past episodes. You can listen to them in your car on your way to work. Whatever works for you, but if you're more the audio person, you're more the audio person, not the video type, you can always catch my shows and the back catalog of shows on any one of those networks. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the shows are downloaded there, plus there's a ton of free videos on different topics. You can always add me on Instagram under Kenny Weiss Coach, and go to the Greatness Movement website to keep up with everything. So, hey, Maureen, nice to see you. So what are we talking about here? Well, obviously you can see the backdrop is different. Previous to this, it was always Your Journey. The name of the show was Your Journey to Success. It was based on my book, Your Journey to Success. And it's time for the next stage. I want to give you a little bit of backstory as to how I got here and why we're making this shift. For some of you, that it was March of 2015, I spent 3 days holed up in my apartment, trying to write a letter to my kids, because I wanted to commit suicide. I was in tremendous pain. I was going through a divorce. My mom had died not too long before that, and I didn't know it, but my dad was on his way to dying just shortly after that too. And I'd done a lot of personal work. Obviously a lot of you know my life history, with lots of struggles. And I'd worked on myself in counseling and done a lot of work, but I was in tremendous pain. And I just couldn't be in that pain anymore. And what I was trying to do was explain that pain to my kids, to let them know why I needed to commit suicide, and that I just couldn't live in that pain anymore. Well, the difficulty was, or the blessing, I guess you could see it, was I had done too much personal work. Since my early 20s, I'd been fascinated by psychology and why we do what we do. And I had always been reading and trying to figure out why I was such a train wreck, addictions and divorces and all the different things I went through. And so as I was trying to write the suicide note to my kids, everything I came up with, I'm like, God, that's manipulative. That's codependent. I'm playing the victim. I was passing all of this stuff. I couldn't outsmart myself because I knew too much about why people commit suicide. I knew too much about psychology. I knew too much about pain. I knew too much about self-victimization, everything. And finally, after 3 days, I realized I couldn't do it. And the other thing I had to finally admit was my defense mechanism as a kid, because of what I've been through, was I was always highly emotional, meaning I could feel what was going on in people. It was a blessing and a curse. And I used that ability to feel what was going on in people to keep myself safe. I was always 250 feet out in front of them, out in front of life, trying to control others, control the situation, to understand what was going on and keep myself safe. And that's what we all do. That's everyone's natural defense mechanism to the trauma. Every single one of us has suffered trauma. It's unavoidable. And so our defense mechanism is we try to control everything. And that's actually what kills us. It's what makes everything worse. It doesn't work. And I realized when I figured out I couldn't commit suicide that I was going to have to, as I walked down the hallway to my bedroom, I was like, I have to let go. I have to wake up tomorrow and not know what's going to happen. That's the only way out of this. I can't try and control things and figure things out. And so I went to bed that night knowing that the person I was, in a sense, was dying. I wasn't going to be that person anymore. I didn't know what I would be the next day, but I knew that part had to go. And so I woke up the next day, and I remember walking out to the end of my hallway where the living room and dining room was, just standing there crying and going, what do I do now? I had no clue what to do. And I just stood there for several minutes. And see, here's what happens when you give up control. Everybody struggles with sleep and stress and all this because they can't shut their mind off. That's you trying to control life. It doesn't work. And when you learn to let go, your mind goes quiet. And I stood there for several minutes, just quiet, not knowing what to do. And finally, I heard a voice that was different, not like a spiritual God, nothing like that. Just a deeper knowing type of voice. And I just heard it say, go sit on the couch. And I did. And I sat there for a little bit, still crying. And then I heard, walk to the gym. And I learned this process of what I call letting life come. There's a whole chapter in my book about it because none of us have been taught how to do this. And that's why we're all struggling, because we're trying to control everything. There are many other things going on, but no one's shown us the way out. And I realized I was learning that way out so I could teach it to other people. A whole new way of living life that we as a society need to know, that we're ready for. And at the time, I had no job. I was almost maxed out on my credit cards and driving for Uber. I was an Uber driver just a couple years ago. That was my career. And every time I'd start to stress out and try and figure out what to do with my life, I'd sit and contemplate. I'm like, stop. Just stop trying to figure it out. Stop trying to control things. Just let it come, Kenny. It'll show up when it's supposed to show up. And so I'd stop. I wouldn't think about it anymore. I learned to trust that the answer would come to me, that controlling it, what I call the Nike philosophy, what every one of you has been taught to live, be a grinder, go, 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 doesn't work. It destroys us all. And I had kind of a sentinel moment. I was driving for Uber, and I don't know if you've ever, well, you may not drive for Uber, but you know this experience. I dropped some people off, and I'm scared to death about money. I'm almost broke, maxed out on my credit cards, and the alarm's not going off to pick up another ride. Well, in the past, what I would do is I'd go, well, there's got to be somebody over there. I'd try and figure out where will the people be that need a ride. And so I'd drive over there, and then I'd drive over here, and eventually I'd probably end up right back where I started before I got a ride. Well, I dropped this person off, and I started to do that, and I went, no, Kenny, you're doing it again. You're trying to control things. You're trying the whole be a grinder, just do it, the whole Nike philosophy. You can't do it. And I forced myself to pull over into a parking lot and just sit there and do nothing. And I got filled with rage, absolutely filled with it. Started screaming and yelling. And I'm like, I can't do this. In other words, I couldn't let go of control, but I also knew if I didn't let go of control, I was going to go right back to the suicide stuff. And I was like, you just have to sit through this, Kenny. You just have to let it go. It took me about 30 minutes. I finally calmed down. I finally just sat in the car and started to look around and noticed how pretty the trees were. And I don't know if you've ever been in Arizona or you've been in Mexico, there's a certain type of palm tree. I don't know what they're called. But when the sun hits their leaves, they glisten like diamonds. And I just was staring at the palm trees and just going, God, life doesn't need to change. Look at the beauty in that. Look at the beauty of the sky. Like I just finally got present. And of course, you know what happened next. Ding. I got a ride. And I broke down crying. I was like, see, Kenny, as soon as you let go of control, as soon as you stop trying to make it happen, life comes to you. The answer comes to you. It's how it works for everybody, but nobody's shown us how to do it. Well, it wasn't long after that I went back into my office and I wrote something else down. I wrote, I want to come up with a protocol that nobody else has discovered that'll fundamentally change society. And I had done a lot of personal work and I knew quite a bit, but I knew I didn't know all of it. So I started to embark on that. It was funny. I still didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember one day I was driving for Uber and I came in for lunch. I drove in the morning, came in to get something to eat, and I flipped on the TV. This is another example of how when you learn the process that the greatness movement is all about, this is how life comes to you. Flip on the TV and there's that show, Selling New York. It's a real estate show, you know, these hotshot young kids reality show, all young and beautiful. And there was this kid named Weiss, gorgeous Latin guy, really over the top. And I turn it on, it goes right to him, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out. So I called my life coach, and they cut to this other 20-something kid, beautiful baby face, and he's like, okay, Weiss, I want you to take 3 deep breaths. And they show Weiss. And they cut away to him. He's like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And I just started cracking up. Now, breath work is incredibly important. It's huge in the recovery process from the trauma we've all suffered. But it's so simplistic. And I realized in that moment, with all my life experiences, all the work I've done, all I know about psychology, human dynamics, relationships, codependence, trauma, abuse, everything, addiction, that's it. That's the career. I'm a life coach. So that afternoon, I got back in the car, and you know what happens in an Uber? What do we all do? What's the first question you ask the Uber driver? So, is this your real job, or what do you really do, right? Isn't that what we all ask them? So the first ride I picked up was this couple, and man and wife, and they asked me that question. I kind of paused and I went, I'm a life coach. And they're like, really? well, can we ask you something? And the guy went on to explain for about 5 or 10 minutes some struggles he was having at work, losing his hair. He had tremendous health problems because there were a lot of struggles in it. I don't want to get into the details. So I pulled the car over and I listened to both of them, both of their sides, and I asked them 3 questions. And in those 3 questions, they found their answer. And the next thing I know, they're both hugging me, crying, thanking me, because they'd been to therapists. They'd been to a lot of people trying to figure out what to do. And in 3 questions, I didn't give them the answer. I saw the answer. But because I've always had this ability, I allowed them to walk into it, which is a much more powerful experience. None of us like to be told what to do. And I allowed them to walk into the answer that they were saying the answer, but they couldn't hear themselves. And so I just allowed them the ability to hear themselves, plus a couple other things. But at that point, I knew, I mean, even my counselor, when I'd gotten into counseling years before, within 2 months, he was like, Kenny, you have a gift. You need to come work for me. And in that moment, I embraced that gift and was like, yep, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that sent me on the journey of, okay, well, if I'm going to create a protocol that nobody else has discovered, I had these intuitions. I had this instinct about human dynamics, about why we're all in pain and why no one wants to change and all these different things. But they were just thoughts and feelings. And I decided to research it. And in the process, I started working with clients. That's what a lot of people don't realize. I started my whole life coaching career as an Uber driver, getting clients who needed Uber rides, and I'd meet them in Starbucks. And that's how I started coaching people originally, before I got in office, was driving for Uber. I didn't have enough clients to quit, and that's how I started it all. And I'll never forget, this was a sentinel moment. And I think this is really for those of you who are still grinding away, doing the night philosophy and still miserable, and aren't ready to commit to facing your trauma, which is keeping you from the life you want. Maybe this will help you. But I started to get a good collection of clients, and I was starting to get a little gap from bankruptcy and actually having to give up the apartment and live on the street. And in 2 days, I lost every single client I had. Poof. Freaked out, completely freaked out. Went in, see, by then I'd started a website and stuff, got on Facebook, started trying to figure out ways I could manipulate or get people to hire me. And in the midst of it, I went, stop, Kenny, stop. You're trying to control it. You're doing the Nike thing again. Just stop. And I got quiet and I sat there. I probably sat there for 2 or 3 minutes. And finally, I heard that voice, remember? And this is what you'll all find. My clients find, people in the greatness movement. This is what happens to you when you work this process. You learn to stop and a different voice comes in. And what I heard was, you need to get smarter. So I got up from the desk. I didn't chase any clients. I didn't work more on driving. In fact, by then I'd stopped driving. As I remember now, I'd stopped driving. I didn't even go back to driving for Uber. I didn't do anything. And for almost 3 weeks, with no money coming in, nothing, I laid by the pool and I read. I got smarter. And while I did all of that, I found the proof to what I had always guessed was going on. And I started to dig into the brain and the body and the biology, and not just the thoughts and feelings, and discovered that, one of the biggest misnomers in this whole industry is, it's all based on thought, which is for the most part, it's a waste of time. You need to focus on your feelings because your feelings are a byproduct of your thoughts. I knew that intrinsically, but I got the proof. Candace Pert, The Molecules of Emotion, several other authors and scientists. I had the concrete proof now. This is how our brain and body works. It's been proven. Illness, all these insights that I inherently knew, but I couldn't back it up other than it was opinion. And that became the basis of the book. Remember what I'd written down. I want to come up with a protocol that nobody else has discovered that'll fundamentally change society. Well, I had been writing for years about my struggles and my insights and my thoughts. And I had been contemplating life for a long time as I went through all that pain and discovering more and more and more. And that's where the book came from, was all of that downloading of insight and perspective. And I put it in the book. Now there's still, to me, that book is a quarter of what it needs to be. There's so much more I'd like to share, and that's probably what I'll share in the next book. But for most people, it's overwhelming. It's stuff they've never heard or experienced or even contemplated or even realized. It's pretty heavy hitting for them. But to me, I feel like I've just scratched the surface of how I could explain each facet, because what I discovered was something I call the worst day cycle. It's something every one of you lives your life in, all of your friends, family, everybody. It's a human condition. It's not a personality trait. And I detail that out. So that became the protocol. All right. So I started the coaching business. Then I started speaking. Then I write the book. All right. And so that's all the protocol. Remember that kind of mission statement I wrote. I want to come up with a protocol. The second half of it was to fundamentally change society. And that hit me about, what is it, I can't remember, 4 to 8 months ago. I don't even remember. It's been such a whirlwind. I'd have to look at my notes. But I see, this is how life works. A friend of mine had suggested a book to me over a year before. And it sat in the notes section on my phone. And I didn't buy it. I read other books. I didn't buy it. It just sat there. And see, I let life come to me. Now, I don't control it. I'm not a grinder. I hate that word. It just makes me want to cry whenever everybody uses that term. I see it all over Facebook. I'm a grinder. And I'm like, oh, you poor thing. You're in so much pain and you don't know it. It breaks my heart. Go out and grind today. And anyway, so I was really I was in a dark place one day and I realized I'm not learning. And so I grabbed my phone, I saw that book and I bought it. And it was basically a book on how to create a following, how to create a movement. And I broke down. I'm like, there it is. This is the process to fundamentally change society. Now I know how I'm going to take this protocol and spread it. And that became the birthplace of the greatness movement. Because if you've read my book, you know I make a distinction between success and greatness. We've all been trained and taught to pursue success. And success makes all of us miserable. It doesn't work because it's based on outside esteem. It's based on the accumulation of things outside of us. The corner office, the trophy husband or wife, the 2.3 kids, all of that stuff. And then we get it. And that's why suicide among politicians, actors, actresses, athletes, all of that, people of wealth and success are killing themselves left and right because it doesn't work. It's not what we're meant to do. What we're meant to do is pursue our greatness. But nobody's ever defined it. And nobody, sure as hell, nobody's ever taught us to walk in it. And that's what my book is about. If you have read the book, I use that term a lot. See, I didn't even know my book was the protocol for the greatness movement. But I made the distinction in the book, the difference between success and greatness. And that's what I mean when you learn to let life come to you, it's always happening. But there are events, life events out in front of you waiting for you to experience. And once you have that experience, it opens up to you. It falls in your lap. You're ready for it. I wasn't ready for it. I was, honestly, if I look back at it, I was too immature in even my own understanding of the protocol I developed, the way to communicate it. I hadn't owned my greatness enough, even though I wrote in the book. I needed more growth in accepting my greatness, learning how to communicate it to others, learning what it is I'd really discovered and how to go about it. And that's why I hadn't figured out the protocol yet. So that's the greatness movement. And what that means is this. I started this business. At first, the first name I had was Coaching to Clarity, because that's what I had thought I found. Then I realized, wait a minute, the story and everything is really centered around my life story and people connect with me and all of that. So I switched the company to Coach Kenny Weiss. And as of Thursday or Friday of last week, Coach Kenny Weiss is gone. That website, if you go looking for it, you won't find it anymore. Everything now is the greatness movement, because it's the next stage of development for me and for what I was ultimately meant to do, which is, fundamentally change society. See, we have a bias against dealing with our pain, against dealing with our trauma, against facing our imperfections and how broken we all are. And we all hide it. And that's why when we achieve success, we're so miserable, because we're like, I'm just a fraud. I have all these things, but I don't feel great inside. And it's time for us to break that stereotype down. It's time for it to, that's why I'm so transparent with what a mess I am and how beautiful my mess is, because somebody has to show that this is the way out. It's not the way we've all been taught, which is to hide it and be secretive. It kills everybody. That's what disease and illness is. Cancer and all of the major diseases right now, they're all a byproduct of self-loathing, self-hatred, of stuffing our emotions and not dealing with them. And that's proven by science. That's not opinion. My book shows it. I don't want to get into that. That'll get diverted. Read the book. It's proven. It's not just my thought. If you're sick, it's because you're hurting. You've not recovered from the trauma you suffered. And until you deal with that, I don't care what pills you take. You're just dealing with the symptoms, not the cause. So that's, again, a side topic. But it's time for the greatness movement. So that's why the show is now the greatness movement. That's why the Coach Kenny Weiss is gone. It's not about me anymore. It's about something bigger. Yes, right now, I'm the one talking about things. I'm the one who has to kind of teach the protocol and everything. But the whole point of a movement is it's not centered around an individual. It's not the Kenny Weiss movement. It's not what it's about. It's bigger than me. And in time, I won't even be mentioned. It'll be about this. That's societal. That's groundbreaking. That's what changes the world, is when it doesn't revolve around me or some other person, when it revolves around a community of people, a group coming together, realizing there's a new way, there's a better way, and this is the way. And they take the message to others. It's not me up on a bully pulpit going, look how great I am, and you have to listen to me. No, it's not about me. It's about the information and about a change in people and the way we look at our life and deal with our life. That's so much bigger than a person. So it's not that I won't do individual coaching. I will still do that. I will still work with people individually, but the focus now is on spreading the message, on spreading the information, so as many people as possible can learn about this. So please, hi Shirley, see you listening. Lisa, Sherry, everybody, Janice, thanks for tuning in. Please, if you're just tuning in, please share this show, because that's how we're going to get the greatness movement out there. It can't be me. It has to be you. I know there are a lot of you that tune in each and every week. This stuff, you're resonating with it. You want to be a part of this change. Well, for this to work, for us, do you hear how I'm saying that? For us to change society, it has to be all of us sharing it, talking about it, spreading the information. It can't just be me, being a blowhard about what I've learned and stuff. It has to be other people sharing their experience in the greatness movement and how it's impacted their life to others. That's how this grows. So please share the show with other people on Facebook right now so we can reach as many people as possible. So how do we bring the greatness movement to society? How do we make that fundamental shift? Well, the first thing is events. Next month, November 15th, here in Arizona, something I call Healing the Hurt. We're focusing on anxiety, fear, stress, and depression. And while I will talk about what causes all of those, it's not going to be you stand there and learn, okay, so I know where it comes from. What the presentation and events primarily about is solutions. This is the protocol to get out of fear, stress, anxiety, and depression without taking pills, because I am going to drop into the science. Every single depressive medication out there has been tested, and it has been proven that the second you stop taking it, you go right back to where you were. There's absolutely no effective gain from taking any medication for any of those. All they do is numb you. They shut you down in other emotions. They blunt who you are as a person, so you can't register the way you feel. They don't cure you. They don't help you. Well, that's not true. That's an unfair statement. If you are in such severe emotional trauma and so depressed, you may need to start with medication. But if that's all you're doing, you will never recover, ever. You will just Band-Aid over the original problem. The only way to recover is by doing the necessary work. And I'm going to show you exactly what that work is. You'll have lots of different options, because here's the thing. With any one of those ailments, each person's way to get rid of their anxiety, stress, or depression will be slightly different. And so you're going to have several to try and several to choose from, so you know which ones work for you and how to get out of it. So it's heavy, heavy, heavy on solutions. So please buy your tickets today. Go to thegreatnessmovement.com. Even if in this moment you aren't stressed or depressed, come get the tools. So if you have a bad day, if you have a bad moment, if you get in a fight with your spouse or your boss and all of that stuff rears up, you know what to do about it so that you don't spiral out of control. Consider preventative maintenance in medicine to get the tools and understanding first before it happens. Also, you can spread that message to those you care about. Because remember, this is about giving people the real information, not the superficial buzzwords everyone else wants to give you. All right? So that's the first thing, events. Now, starting in January, I have put together an 8-event series. We're going to, every 5 to 6 weeks, I'm going to be tackling a new topic that's part of the greatness movement. We're going to be doing it all next year to really get the message out to people. And so you're going to get an opportunity to come to these events and learn and grow. Because here's the 5 key things. I mean, the greatness movement is, let me start over. The greatness movement is fundamentally the ultimate self-awareness process. That's what it is. I just go deeper than anything I've seen as far as how to build self-awareness. And self-awareness, listen, did you see how self-awareness saved my life? If you don't have self-awareness, that's why you're not succeeding in any area of your life, because you're not aware of how you're sabotaging it, how your feelings are driving everything you do. So if you are not doing self-awareness work, that's why your life is in disarray. And that's part of the bias we need to get rid of. In our society right now, the stigma is much less than it used to be, but there's still a stigma of doing self-awareness work. I know what to do. I know who I am. Baloney. No, you don't. And I'm serious. You don't. I just breaks my heart when I hear people say that. They're absolutely clueless as to why their life is a struggle, and it's playing out right in front of them, and they don't even see it. There needs to be, in my belief, a passion in society to gain self-awareness. That is the only way we will shift society. All these political debates, whichever side of the aisle you're on, that's a lack of self-awareness, a lack of emotional maturity on both sides. Republican, Democrat, Green Party, pick your party. What you're seeing is a lack of self-awareness and emotional maturity on all sides. And that's why nothing is getting done. Until we tackle the root problem, which is a lack of emotional maturity and self-awareness, nothing in society will change. Guns, killing, pick any topic you want. They are all a byproduct of the lack of self-awareness and emotional work. Everything. You can bring up any topic you want. In 2 seconds, I can show you exactly how it all boils down to that. So the greatness movement has 5 pillars. It's the ultimate self-awareness process. We focus on self-awareness, personal development, communication, relationships, and leadership. All right. We're going to do that through the greatness movement events. So people can come and get an introduction to this information so they can begin the self-awareness, personal development, communication, relationship, and leadership process. Now, the next stage of it are the greatness groups. Those are individualized groups. We have several of them running right now in Phoenix. Now, there's a huge distinction between what I'm doing and everyone else in the personal development field that's promoting personal growth, self-awareness, all of that. All the other people out there try and sell you what I call adrenaline events. 3-day weekends, change your life, figure it all out. Now, I still want you to go to all of them. You're going to learn some stuff. Even the worst one. If you have no exposure to any of this, you're going to learn stuff. So I want you to go. But I want you to realize you're going to walk into that. And in that 1 day, 3-day event, you're going to walk out feeling amazing because of the adrenaline. But within 24 to 72 hours, poof, it's gone. And you're just as bankrupt as you were before, because the way our brains work, you cannot absorb all of that information in 24 or 72 hours. It's too much. It's overwhelming. And so what they're selling is a very low cost event, which makes you feel good. It's incredibly good psychological manipulation. It's a wonderful sales job. Again, I'm not demeaning them. There is still value in it, but it is a psychological manipulation to sell you something that will make you feel better for a short period. And then the next stage is it's high pressure sales. You need to bring a friend to an event or you'll get chastised. You need to sign up for the next course. It's always leading you on a loop for more and more and more. The other difference is most of those events are 100, 500, 10,000 people in an auditorium. Well, I know many of them are very well-intentioned and they want you to open up and share your deepest secrets. You tell me, if it's your first time to an event, are you really going to tell your deepest, darkest secret in front of 500 people? No. You're going to tell something you can live with, something that sounds, you're going to hear somebody get a little deep and you'll match it. but you're not going to go all the way down. You're not going to cover the root issue. And that's another reason why they don't work, because you're set up in an environment because of the current bias in society. See, these events would be wonderful once the greatness movement has taken off and we've had a shift in society where it's now this societal norm to pursue self-awareness. Then people would walk into an auditorium and talk just like I do. They tell their whole life story and not worry about it. They just don't care because they're okay with themselves. They have true self-esteem, so they're no longer worried about being judged. But we're not at that place in society. So honestly, it's too early for those events and movements that they're trying to create. Society isn't ready for that. You could say, here's a way to compliment it. They're ahead of their time. They're ahead of their time because society's not ready to be in an arena with 10,000 people to gut yourself. And so what I've set up is fundamentally different. It's small, intimate groups, minimum of 8 people, no more than 10 people. Okay. I do them in my office. All right. I set up a private Facebook group. So there's interaction only among the members. You build a safe community to start with, close connections, people you can turn to and talk to. So when you share your story, you feel safe and cared for. All right. I'm there to run it, to teach people boundaries and all of that, and make sure people don't sabotage the meeting or don't inappropriately respond. All right. I'm there guiding all of it. Okay. The other fundamental difference is we meet once a month. I give you a workbook to go through the protocol that's outlined in my book. And you have a month to do the work, to let your brain acclimate to the information, to sit in thought, sit and experience and try it out. You're not overwhelmed with adrenaline and then thrust back into life where you can't work on it. Now it's too much because they overload you with information. It's like, I can't do this. This is too much. I can't handle all of this. And so you get stuck. So many people that I know that have gone to those events, they love them. They had a great experience, but they're still struggling with the exact same problem. That's what the greatness, one of the sentinel differences is. The greatness movement is also for the people that have been to all of those other platforms and they're ready for the next step. They're ready to actually do the work and get to the core issues and the core things that are keeping them, not from their success, but from their greatness. That's what fundamentally we're all looking for. So that's another fundamental difference between what the greatness movement does and what everybody else does. The other thing that we do that separates us is I videotape each meeting. That way you can go back into your private Facebook group and rewatch it. Because even in that 1 hour to 1.5 hours, it just depends. I don't have a time limit on it, but it's roughly an hour to a little bit more. That's still an overwhelming amount of information. And so you can go back and watch the video and work through the workbook, because I walk you through the workbook for that month so that you have a framework of what to look for and the subtleties of each question and each level of the stage of personal growth, self-awareness, communication, leadership, all of it. I walk you through each month what you're doing and what you need to look for and focus on. And obviously the group is interactive. I'm asking questions. How do you see this part playing out in your life? What would you like to see different? Do you see how what I just described shows where you're missing that piece, and now you have the tools and information to work through that piece? Okay. So that's another huge advantage. There's no high pressure sales. Going on to the next. Here's the next piece. I'm already developing the next protocol for the leadership aspect. Several people have reached out to me and said, because the whole point of the greatness movement is for people that go through the course to then start their own groups and take this movement out to the masses. It can't be all about me. It has to be about people recognizing, like people already seen. There was a lady who just posted recently and she goes, I find it wait, how did she say it? Not fascinating. She goes, it's no coincidence that the best year of my life coincided with me starting the greatness movement. That's the type of change that is happening in the process that I'm walking people through. But then the next step is for them to take it out to other people and run their own groups. And so I'm developing, the teaching series for those people who want to do that. And then they can run their own groups. And that's the whole point of this, is it has to be bigger than me. And that's how we'll do it. Now, I know I have a ton of followers that are out of state, and they want to be a part of this. I almost had a group started, but the people are in 3 different time zones. Trying to get people in 3 different time zones to agree on a certain day and time doesn't work. So, hey, Kimmy, Nancy, good to see you. If you are not in Arizona and you want to be a part of the greatness movement, find 8 people in your time zone, 8 to 10 people in your time zone. And I don't care if it's during the day, we will find a day and time. I will adjust my schedule to meet your schedule and do an online greatness movement group just designed for you people that don't live here. So if you are out of state and you want to be a part of the greatness movement, if you want the ultimate self-awareness process, if you want to create a fundamental shift in society and make self-awareness something we do from birth, not something we avoid from birth, but it's something we seek from birth, then please reach out to me. If you know 8 to 10 people that want to start a group, I will adjust my schedule and I will make damn sure I'm available to teach this and mail you the workbooks each month and facilitate all of it. We will get it done. Now, that's the other thing. The cost for the greatness groups, nobody can't not afford this. It's $99 a month. That's it. I know everybody's going to Starbucks, going out to dinner, movies, renting movies, all the different things. Everybody has $99 a month they're throwing away. So if you want to fundamentally change your life, you can afford $99 a month. That's the other thing that I did. It's incredibly price conscious for everybody out there. So it doesn't leave anybody out to be a part of the greatness movement. Everyone can be a part of it. So that's the big news. Basically, Coach Kenny Weiss is gone. We are ready now for the next stage of what I wrote down when I was coming out of my suicide. And it's time to fundamentally change society. So I'm asking for your help. There are a lot of you that listen to it. I see a lot of you online right now listening. If you want to be a part of the greatness movement, please be a part of it. Whatever way you want to show up, whether that's promoting the show, whether that's being a part of one of the greatness movement classes, one of the groups, spreading the message to other people. The only way I can do this is if other people are involved. So this is kind of a call to arms. Let's do something about this. Look at all the pain out there. Think of it. The politics. Look at how ugly it is. I don't care which side you're on. Both sides are ugly. Both. And if you think your side isn't, that tells me you need the greatness movement, because both sides are terribly ugly right now. All the issues with guns, the border, I don't care what it is, the health crisis of all the diseases out there, that's a lack of emotional maturity. The science proves it. It's time we give people the information and the process and the tools to change society. Think of it. Think of what you could be a part of. I don't care what your age is, of something bigger than you. I know that's what everyone's thought is. I want to do something that's impactful. Well, I'm asking for your help. Help me impact this. Help me change society so that self-awareness, personal development, communication, relationships, and leadership are something we all seek from the very moment we are born. It's not the way it is now, where we all avoid it, where there's a stigma and you're somehow bad or defective if you have problems or you're imperfect. Let's change that. Think of how much peace. Great question just popped into my head. How much pain are you in right now? How much pain do you go through on a daily basis hiding your imperfections? Not telling people how much pain you're in because you're afraid they'll be judged or you don't feel safe around them. How much pain is that? Your family members, your friends, your spouse. How many destructive relationships have you had? How many marriages have you had? How many jobs have you been fired from or had issues with? All of that, all of the struggles in your life are the byproduct of a lack of self-awareness, personal development, communication, relationship, and leadership skills. It's a lack of emotional maturity. Please help me change that in society. That's the change. And so now it's much less about Kenny Weiss and Coach Kenny Weiss. Again, I'll still work with people. If you need help and you want to work individually, I will help you. But now it's about something bigger than me. It's about helping people on a grand scale. And that's why the events. So I'm just asking for your help if you join me in the process of taking society from chasing success into chasing greatness, because greatness is different. See, when we walk in our greatness, regardless if we have the things or the people or the title or any of that, even if we're dead broke, just like I was, when I had no clients, no money, and I was laying by a pool reading books, in that moment, I had pure peace. I knew what was coming. I knew I would be here, and I just had to wait for it. That's greatness. And it's available to all of us, that peace and knowing that life and what we're meant to do, the essence, the gift that every single one of you has, that I have. It is the greatness movement is the process to allow you to discover that and walk in it. That's the shift we're making. That's the promise we're making to other people, is regardless of where you are in your life, when you pursue your greatness, you are at peace, you are comfortable, and you know it's on its way. You just have to let it come. But we need to teach people how to do that. So I'm asking for your help. Please join the greatness movement. Join a group, whether you're in state or out of state. Join a group. If you're out of state, collect your friends. You know, a lot of people get behind a political cause, get behind a social movement to get people to walk in their greatness, to be happy and okay. And let's get this thing going. Let's make a real impact on the world, because that's what I'm after, is something so much bigger. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I really appreciate all of you tuning in. And there are many of you that are just huge, loyal supporters of the show. And I appreciate that. I guess I'm asking for a little bit more support. Many of you share the videos and everything. Please find ways to share the website, to share my YouTube channel, to draw people to the information, get them to come to events, introduce them to events, introduce them to the free information. I'm not even asking you to buy stuff. Introduce them to the free information. Let's start getting everybody accustomed to pursuing their greatness, not just success. So look inside yourself and ask yourself, are you ready to pursue your own greatness? And are you ready to take that greatness to others? If you are, I would really appreciate your help. And if you're not ready to, no judgment. As I talk about in my book, I wasn't ready to pursue my greatness either in my process. And if that's where you are, okay, let it come. You'll get there just like I did. Just keep going. Just keep forgiving yourself. Keep forgiving yourself. If you're not there yet, if you're not ready to join in all this, that's okay. Just keep going towards your pain and you will get there. You will finally be ready to walk in your greatness. It's a process. It'll find you. I promise you. All right. I really appreciate everyone's support. And I'm excited. It's time. God, I'm going to get tears because I'm realizing, this tonight's show is just as much about me as it is you guys. It's time for me to walk in my greatness. It's time for me to share the message. It's time for me to do it too. So I realize in this moment, everything I've been saying, trying to talk to you, is just as much about me too. So anyway, I'd love to do it together if that's something that works for you. So let's call it a night. As you know, I like to end every show the same way. Remember, we all judge and criticize everybody. And when we do that, we're always describing ourselves and our own pain and our own trauma and the things we don't want to face in ourselves. And that's what the greatness movement, one of the many things the greatness movement does, it shows you that and gives you freedom from that. But the biggest thing people don't realize about this is another aspect, part of the protocol nobody's ever talked about. I think I've heard some people talk about how judgment and blame and criticism is about you, but I've never heard them do this. We all have people in our life or people we've seen where we're like, that person has greatness. Well, the only reason we can see that, because see, that's still judgment. The only reason we can judge them that way is because we all have greatness in us. Don't ever forget that. If you can't feel how great you are, join the greatness movement. Let us help you. It's the pathway to find it. I finally found it, and I'd like to share it with everybody else. All right, I'm going to end it there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please share the show. Please buy your tickets for the next event, and we will see you next week. Have a wonderful night.
I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.
Coach on Fire Radio.